Hey, Yopro audience. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about Wallaco, Way of Life Athletic Company. If you didn't catch Lindley's interview from earlier this year, then you might not know that Wallaco is all about being efficient in your day-to-day life. And here at the Yopro, that's what we strive to provide you with resources to help you maximize your young professional careers, both inside and outside of the office. As you can tell, I'm wearing some athletic wear today, as I do most days when I'm not on an important interview call for Yopro or for my full-time job. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Wearing athleisure is the way of today and the way of the future, in my opinion, especially as we work from home. So you want to be comfortable. And Wallaco definitely provides that option. So thanks to Wallaco for being a great partner. Take a look in the notes below to see how you can get your special discount as a Yopro audience member. Now for the Yopro of the week. Hey everyone, it's Camber here with the Yopro. We are here today with Ted Phaeton, 32-year-old morning anchor and Modern Man founder. We'll get into that in a second. He is living in Greenville, South Carolina, and we actually met a couple weeks ago through a mutual connection of ours, Randy, who's very engaged in the community, and Ted and I thought that we definitely needed to collaborate, and so here we are. So Ted, thanks so much for being here today.
Amber, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you and your audience and learn some things today.
Awesome. And I have to comment, for those of you who are listening in the podcast and not seeing the video, Ted has a mic, a very professional mic in front of him. And so I would say that you look like you're interviewing me. So I gotta work on that.
Hey, you can borrow the mic anytime.
But you are a morning anchor, so it makes sense. It's very on brand. So, all right, Ted, let's start off. Just give us a background on you. So where you're from, what you currently are doing. You can talk both about, being an anchor and a founder, and then we'll really dive into those details.
Yeah, sure. So the name's Ted Phaeton. I was born in New York, raised in New York, and you could take me out of the city, but the city's always going to be in me. First started my career in TV in Saginaw, Michigan, 3 years after I graduated college. Had a little bit of a dark period during that time with a minor depression, working at a law firm, dead-end job, which I mentioned that to play into where I am now. We're going from Saginaw, Michigan to Greenville, South Carolina. I started off as the weekend meteorologist here. I have a background in weather. And then from moving to weather, I became the morning anchor. And working mornings gave me a lot of free time during the day. And that allowed me to pour into some of my mentors locally, mentors afar. And most of them were men that guided me. So as morning anchor, I would do that by day. And then my second job was actually getting a group of men together and starting what's called the Modern Man, which is quite simply just a men's networking and empowerment group here in Greenville, South Carolina, where we discuss some of the challenges men go through in today's society. We discuss ways how we can rise up to the occasion, reach our full potential, lift each other up, and just be the best husbands, fathers, sons, and members of society that we can be.
Wow. Thank you. That very concise recap. I love it. And there's a lot of things I want to pick away from that and kind of get down into the details. So first thing, wow, you were working at a law firm, you said, and then you made the switch. You said you had a background in weather though.
Yeah, that's what I studied in school.
Really?
Broadcast meteorology was my major.
Okay, great. And you were doing this by day, and then you were, working at night too. Tell us about that. And that was, at what time was this in your career? How old were you at this point?
So are you talking about after college with the law firm?
After college, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I graduated, it was 2010, right after the market crashed, and a lot of media industries were still bouncing back from that. So they weren't really aggressively hiring. Mm-hmm. I had an issue where it was the catch-22. Nobody wanted to hire me because I didn't have experience. How do I get experience if no one hires me? So though I was working at a law firm, didn't like it, I decided to use the resources around me. And I used the help of the law firm to incorporate a company, which I would wake up 2 hours before work and I would make these little graphics on Photoshop and forecast. And I would kind of do that before work and do those videos. I also noticed that a lot of my attorneys would have court cases with these documents from the CDC, the NCDC, the National Climactic Data Center, which is the only weather report you could use in the court of law. And these attorneys would spend hours deciphering them. And I told them, hey, I have a major in broadcast meteorology. I could decipher that thing in 15 minutes and send you a memorandum. So I became a weather consultant for the law firm. So I kind of used those two experiences, covered some weather occurrences in the area under my company to kind of give myself that leg up as I continued applying for 3 years before I got my foot in the door.
Wow. Thank you. That again, I know I mentioned this before the interview, but it's really so fascinating to me to see how the pieces connect, how the dots connect, and how, you were there 10 or give or take a few years ago, and
Yeah.
now you're here. So bouncing back to Modern Man, I know I keep going all over the place, but going back to Modern Man, so there are not many groups like this out there, correct?
Mhm. Not that, I mean, there are a few, but not too many. They're not that popular,
Mm-hmm.
if you would. And it
Yeah,
was kind of one of those things I found out that some people actually wanted it and needed it.
absolutely. And you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we met, when you were presenting on Modern Man, you had mentioned a statistic, and I don't want to do it a disservice here, so I'm going to let you share it. But the statistic of men's suicide in America is significantly higher, and I don't want to take that away from you, but that was something that really struck me. So can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, sure. So suicide being the 10th leading cause of death in America, and this is in 2018, the striking number was that white males accounted for 70% of that. And on when you compare the genders, men commit suicide 3.5 times more than their female counterparts. And that was just kind of the shocking numbers to me of the impacts of mental health in our society. I think there's been a huge push and awareness towards mental health, but there's still a taboo around men seeking help. And what I kind of found through some research was a lot of it stems from isolation. Quite frankly, the surprising number when it comes to suicide is women actually attempt suicide more than men, but men are more, I guess, violent in their ways of doing so, and they're more successful.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I hate using successful
Yeah, yeah. No,
as
I
a
know.
word, but the the evidence shows that the isolation kind of drives some of those tendencies.
Mhm.
And pretty much with the Modern Man, I wanted to avoid the taboo of building a help group or something like that, but more or less build an empowerment and network group, kind of so we can build the well before we're thirsty, have a group of people we trust that we can confide in when life gets hard. As 2020 has shown us, uncertainty is always right around the corner.
Absolutely. I mean, I am really, proud to be interviewing you because you're somebody who's doing something about it. And it's a shame to me that those statistics are so high, but it's really great to see you doing something about it. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
One thing that a lot of our audience members often are looking for answers to, or fixing a certain problem, is the problem of work stress, and that goes along with mental health. So what would you tell people when they're looking to minimize their work stress, and from kind of stopping it from transferring over into their personal lives?
Yeah. I would say compartmentalizing is huge. And I know for a lot of people who are ambitious, myself included, have a hard time unplugging and separating from work. The biggest thing that helped me, and it really came into play when I started anchoring, because it was such a new skill and it bogged me down, and it actually beat on my confidence so much. So when I left work, I had to intentionally find something else that gave me confidence. So whatever it is that work takes from you, you need to find someplace else where you can get that back. So if it's energy, what gives you energy? If it's comfort, what gives you comfort? Finding the opposite, kind of just like, hey, like energy can't be created nor destroyed, just transferred from one body to another. While you expend your energy or whatever it is at work, you need to replenish that someplace else. And it's really important for us to kind of explore that and then compartmentalize the two, separate the two, and forgive yourself for that. Yeah, and that I think is a practice that a lot of us can take that can help us, because there's benefit in the duality and the polarity in there.
Mhm. Great, thank you. I know that, again, that's something that people reach out to me about all the time, and I'm not the expert, so I can't, because I certainly have trouble with that. But I like that expending, like figure out what you're expending and try to replenish it in other areas. I think that's helpful. So thank you. I want to go back because I don't want to forget about, your job as an anchor. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like day to day for somebody who might be interested in getting in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I start by saying I was the kid in high school who was terrified to read out loud.
What?
So the fact that I'm anchoring now is a shock. My high school self would not believe me
Mhm.
if I told myself. But typically my day-to-day starts very early. I get into work and we pretty much read over some of the news stories from overnight. A lot of breaking news happens overnight in terms of crime, shootings, accidents, and things like that. So we'll kind of get up to speed with some of the breaking news that happened the night before, and we'll look ahead to some of the events that are happening the day of, and I'll go over the scripts. Our producers will kind of create what's called a rundown, which is just the order in which the stories will be. And as an anchor, my job is to familiarize myself with each and every single story. And when I have that kind of taken care of and I've gone through the scripts, we can edit the scripts, change it to our style a little bit. I will record radio. We'll record Alexa flash briefings now. But now there's everything on digital. We do Facebook Lives. But the brunt of our job is really delivering the show, which is from 4:30 to 9 a.m. It's different for every morning anchor. But when the show's on, we're pretty much delivering each story to the audience at home. We're navigating the show, whether we are tossing to weather, whether we're tossing to reporters out in the field. I would say the goal overall of journalism is just translating information that's important to the public. Our job and journalism at its core is informing the public so they can self-govern. And that's in a nutshell what we do. Every single day, we want to give you what's going on over the hill, as you would. What's going on beyond your eyesight, beyond your view. And we give you that information so you can better plan your day, you can better make decisions for your day. And there are times which, as journalists, we really take pride in when we can give information where you become aware of a problem that gets fixed through legislation, laws changing, and things like that.
Great. And I would be, remiss if I did not share this week that we're interviewing. It is election week. Tell us about when things, and election week I know is a big example. But when things happen like the election or, in the time of the pandemic, how does that impact your job and your day to day?
Oh yeah. It's interesting because having a meteorology background and now being an anchor, these what we would call significant events is really kind of quote unquote what we get paid for, if you would. Your typical day to day is just relaying information, but when I guess not the stakes being high, but when the information is sensitive, when the
Right.
information is critical, there's a heightened sense and of awareness around it. um, that's really when our training, our focus, our ability to kind of decipher what's true, what's not, what's real, what's not, and our way of articulating it becomes so much more important.
Mhm.
And I think we could say something that gets interpreted 100 different ways, and that's part of the business. That's understanding. I mean, we all have played the game telephone before, and we know how things can get lost in
Yeah.
communication.
Mhm.
But the ever changing challenge that we have, especially in our lightning fast world of social media,
Mhm.
is translating the information as accurate and as fast as we can. And speed is the opposite of accuracy. So it's finding that balance in these times and really doing the best we can.
Great. I'm writing that down. Speed is the opposite of accuracy.
Yeah. That's the kind of the thin line we have to balance there is, being accurate. Do you want to be first or do you want to be accurate? And most of the time you can't be both.
Mhm.
So it's balancing it as best as we can.
Right. Um, all right. So I'm mindful of our time. So I'm going to wrap up with a few more questions. One
Mhm.
thing I always like to ask young professionals is, and especially ones who are in their 30s, because we all know we start off as young professionals in our, in our early 20s. And I interview probably a good mix of people in their 20s and 30s. And so I like asking people in their 30s, what is a hardship looking back on, the last 10 years of your career? What's a hardship that you've learned from? And,
Mhm.
what were some of those specific takeaways from that?
Ooh, the most recent and I think most significant hardship would be the anchoring journey. When I went from the weather center to the anchor desk, I had never anchored a day in my life. And the idea and the plan was to ease my way in slowly and start with light stories and slowly go to hard stories. Well, whenever you have a plan, chances are it's not going to go that way.
Mhm.
And we had one of our anchors was sick, and we had a breaking news story of Todd Colehep. I'm not sure if the listeners are familiar with that story. There's been documentaries and things on that. He was a serial killer. Now
Mhm.
we have this breaking news story. It's 4:30 a.m. And not only do I have to anchor, I have to anchor a full show by myself. Um, that was rough,
Right.
and there were a lot of stumbles along the way. But as with any skill, the reason I decided to anchor was because it made me uncomfortable and it scared me. And when I got complacent in my job, when I got complacent in my career, I had to look for the next challenge, the next opportunity for growth. And though there were growing pains and though there were hard times at the beginning of anchoring, and it's a new skill I'm learning in front of so many people each and every single day, there were stumbles, there were
Yeah.
fumbles. But looking back now to where I am, I can barely recognize who I am anymore. I have competence and comfort on the anchor desk that I never thought I would have. And if anybody's listening, I would encourage them to take that challenge in their career that scares them. Obviously, managed challenge. Don't jump off a cliff without a parachute, but
Mhm.
um, take that challenge in your career that scares you a little bit, because I think you'd be surprised at what you're capable of.
Great. Thank you. And I think for so many people who are listening and watching, that probably will be really encouraging. I know it's encouraging for me. I'm 25 years old, and I know that when I'm 32, I'm going to look back at the beginning of my career and hopefully think the same thing. I mean, I hope that's the case, because why would you want to be complacent
Yeah.
for, I mean, even for even a year, but why would you want to be complacent for years and years of your career? So I think that is a great way to end the interview. Ted, thank you so much for being on the Yopro and for your time. We really appreciate it.
Camera, thank you. And thank you to the audience for giving me the time. And I hope that was something valuable there.
Absolutely. And we have to, before we end, we have to let people know how they can find you. So how can we find you?
So I'm very active on Instagram, actually, and that's the Real Phaeton Forecast. Last name spelled Phaeton. I also have a website that I put a lot of my stuff out there called PhaetonForecast.com, spelled just like my handle. And whether you do that or Facebook is just Ted Phaeton, available there as well. Shoot me a message. I'd love to connect and find out how we can help each other out.
Great. And we'll make sure we link to your profiles too. So that way, if anyone didn't catch that, we'll make sure that we get there. And you do have a podcast as well.
I do. Yes. It's called No Rain, No Rainbows, and actually came about during my anchoring. That was where I got my confidence from when I talked about compartmentalizing before. And yeah, you can't get the flowers without the rain, and you can't get the sunshine without the rain. So just embracing the hardships of life to get the life we all want.
Right. Well, Ted, I am so excited to get to know you a little bit better, and to also have you in our audience and sharing with our audience today. So thank you again, and we will stay connected.
Likewise. Camber, thank you.